Welcome back to the Open Web Forum at CogX, curated by Fabric Ventures. Up next, we have a special presentation from Sasha Hudzilin, who was previously head of business development at NIA, and now he's going to tell us all about what he's doing with HumanGuild. Welcome, Sasha.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, how are you? Go ahead.
Very good. Can you see my screen?
Yep, that looks great.
Cool. Well, hi everyone. This is Sasha. I wanted to spend some time today introducing you to HumanGuild. That's one of the guilds within your ecosystem. We have actually a couple dozen guilds at this point in time. And last week actually was another 7 guilds that got started. So it's super exciting. We kind of see decentralization organizationally happening in real life. There's no playbook for this. It's super interesting. And in our case, in HumanGuild case, we want every human to be rewarded for bringing their creations to the world. That's kind of like our North Star, what we focus on. And I'm going to start with introduction to myself, NIR, and HumanGuild, and I'm going to showcase some of the projects in our space. So I worked in NIR since inception, since August of 2018. We started pretty much in summertime of 2018. We're figuring out what we're even building. To begin with, we had a team of 9 early on, 7 engineers. 1 person was doing operations. Myself was talking to the market. And more than anything, I was actually focusing on application sourcing. So finding founders and actually seeing what would it take for us to have them built on our technology platform that was still in the process of being built. And that's what I've been doing for pretty much like 2 years. And in that time, chatted with 350 founders in a space, learning both things that informed our product strategy. So we actually learned that end user usability, bringing mass market into crypto, is very important. And in fact, is actually first problem before you tackle scalability. You kind of need to first have usage. So that actually informed quite a bit our focus on the product side of things. We started focusing on usability, how like onboarding is done, how transactions are handled, how accounts are done. But also through those conversations with founders, it allowed me to understand what would it take to win projects to build on NIR. And lots of times actually boil down to helping on the business side, not just technology. In order to double down on these efforts, helping founders on the business side, I started the incubator accelerator called Open Web Collective. We have run through 2 different batches so far. That has been going really well and continuously evolving the curriculum and what we offer to the founders. And I also ended up becoming an advisor to a couple startups in space. Flux is a prediction market built on NIR. 1inch is AMM in Ethereum ecosystem. And one of the first essentially guilds that came from the NIR core team is HumanGuild. So we started this earlier this year together with Vlad, who built many pieces of infrastructure for NIR and NIR wallet as well. So we formed the guild. And so just to give a little bit background on NIR itself, NIR is a layer 1 blockchain with 3 main focuses in terms of product being scalability, end user usability, and development experience. So when we started, it was all about scalability. The initial team came from database background. Sharding databases actually lined up well to sharding as a way to scale blockchains. But then, as I mentioned earlier, after talking to the market, realized that actually end user usability is very important. Bringing mass market is very important. And that ended up being like a really big focus for us, specifically how onboarding is done, how transactions are flowing, and how account model is done. Making sure that blockchain is fully abstracted away from the users, that like people like my mom can use blockchain applications. And we can actually move from buying and selling digital assets to the place where people use crypto apps every day. We also learned about challenges of development experience in crypto by going to the ETH San Francisco Hackathon in 2018 and actually double down a lot on the development experience as well. We have a large team within NIR, maybe 10 or so people at this point, who focus on documentation, education, development experience, supporting programming languages, building examples, and so forth. So those are like 3 areas of focus for NIR scalability, and user usability and development experience. And more recently, we also realized, of course, the importance of deeper connectivity with Ethereum ecosystem. And so we built 2 different products as well on that front to cover assets moving between Ethereum and Near back and forth in a fully trustless way. We built the bridge, and that's live. The main use case for the bridge today is actually AMM, where people trade coins, and there'll be more emerging use cases coming up in the next couple of months. And we do also have support now for Ethereum virtual machine to move Ethereum contracts to Near without having to rewrite them. So those are the 2 products related to Ethereum ecosystem that we also have. So that's kind of like Near in a nutshell. And then HumanGuild is started pretty much this year when we started thinking about how to start doing decentralization organizationally. So Near grew to 100 plus people over last year. End goal was always to become an open source ecosystem, not a corporate entity. That's where Ethereum started from day one, from completely new model, whereas Near started more like Silicon Valley startup, which gradually is on a path to become open source ecosystem. And it's kind of like important to mention that if you start on a fully decentralized open source ecosystem from day one, you would have huge advantage in building communities and partnerships working with the community. But you would have drawbacks around execution, engineering, and business execution. On the other hand, if you start as a Silicon Valley startup like Near, you would have pretty good momentum on execution side of things, but you would be hurting when it comes to community building. And so that's a journey, a path for us to start as a Silicon Valley startup, but actually get to the place where it looks more like open source ecosystem in the next, five or so years. And so we ended up being the first spin out from the core team to work in Near ecosystem. Turns out that it's actually fairly interesting for other people. In Near, there are like another at least 4 spin outs that I can think of. Each spin outs are focusing on their individual area and measured by this one particular metric that they focus on. So we have new spin outs such as Aurora, such as Open Web Collective, such as Proximity, such as Satori. There is a development agency here. There's Incubator Accelerator that's now becoming a separate entity. There is also EVM project that is its own project now. And Proximity is actually the labs incubator focusing on DeFi as well. So that model, like spin-outs, is actually becoming like increasingly prevalent in our ecosystem. Interesting thing about it to mention is that there is no playbook for this. For this, there is nobody to go to and learn from in terms of how it's done. So we're pretty much learning as we go. In terms of individual focus for HumanGuild specifically, we focus on increasing amount of people who are paid in Near weekly. And the context of how people get paid in Near weekly is actually different application by application. So for example, if it's AMM, the liquidity provider can be an earner. If it's NFT marketplace, the artist or musician can be an earner, and so forth. And so we're actually religiously tracking this number. We have queries in just every single application within Near, and we look at the number of earners in a particular context of every single application, essentially. And this number today is 1,000. So we have like 1,000 earners across 15 or so applications that went live so far. And we are also building community of founders and creators who are building new experiences. Some of it is just for the inspiration of other creators and founders. That's pretty much what HumanGuild is in a nutshell. It's a community, but we all focus on increasing amount of earners. A quick snapshot for the Near ecosystem. So today we're having roughly 150,000 transactions daily on the Near ecosystem. We have roughly 40,000 weekly active accounts. Sometimes it's 5,000 to 7,000 daily that people use Near applications and for like staking and other purposes. We have a lot of Near staked today, 400 million Near staked, earning roughly 10% yield annually. And we have also, as I mentioned, 15 or so applications launched so far. And at HumanGuild, we work roughly with 35 applications within our particular domain, focusing creator economy and gaming and Web2 marketplaces that will launch actually later in this year. And so in practice, we help founders to launch sooner. We help founders with usage once they launch. We do game jams, incubate more ideas and things like that. As I mentioned, we have 1,000 earners right now, weekly, across all of the applications that went live. And if you ever want to kind of look deeper into stats of our ecosystem, we have explorer.near.org/stats. That's the best place to watch the growth of ecosystem, be it new accounts being created, active accounts, transactions happening, what are the most active contracts, what are the most active accounts, what are the trends across all of those numbers. And then if you want to look at specifically at applications, that's awesomenear.com. That's where you can see like trending applications, upcoming applications, and all kinds of things related to like application ecosystem. Now, how do people actually earn Near today? So we have Berry Club Universe applications. We have 4 applications connected to each other where people farm in the Berry Club context. You can look at berryclub.io to kind of like see the example of it. We also have Berry Farm, we have Banana Swap, and we have essentially this whole ecosystem across applications where people draw things and get paid. We also have prediction markets that went live a couple months back. So there is a prediction market called Pulse, where people can get paid for predicting events today. Then there are also NFT sales happening across 3 different NFT marketplaces, such as Pluminet, such as Mintbase, such as Paras. Each one of those marketplaces focusing on different things. People get paid also by doing data labeling of machine learning data on Near Crowd. That's almost like a mechanical Turk on blockchain where people data label the images and explain what they see on images and get paid. So that's actually getting a lot of traction right now in English-speaking countries and about to expand into India. Then people also get paid by incubating games on Paras. It starts as very simple trading card games, and then people can build even more complex games to the extent that they have a game developer on the team. People also receive tips for useful activities via a Near Telegram bot. So I actually get paid every week for doing tips in a newsletter that compiles all of the information about our ecosystem. So I just send a couple links to this particular Telegram channel and get paid for doing so. So that's pretty cool. We also have transcoding services, so people can provide their own GPUs for people who need video processing and get paid for this. Then there are also trading and battling pets action happening on Pixel Party universe of apps. There are 3 different apps there as well. Similarly to Berry Club, there's kind of like its own small ecosystem of apps. And then also whoever is doing useful work for Near ecosystem gets paid also through our network of DAOs. We have more than 100 DAOs in Sputnik DAO. Sputnik.fund is where you can start your own DAO within minutes. I actually have my own DAO as well within HumanGuild and use it weekly. It's very powerful. You can just click a couple buttons and somebody gets funding. So it's actually very powerful. Now, how do people get paid tomorrow, like going forward? Those, again, were things on the previous slide, how people get paid today. And that's 1,000 people weekly. And for tomorrow, in the future, there's a music marketplace upcoming called DAO Records. That's where musicians get paid for minting their audio NFTs and also creating almost like collectives of musicians via DAOs. And I anticipate there will be a lot of experimentation also around how to grow distribution for musicians, how to increase monetization for musicians through creating those incentives for their own communities, for early audiences using DAOs. There's also a manga marketplace going live in a couple months. There is also independent filmmaking platform focusing on Africa. There is also an indie gaming platform called OP Games. That's where a lot of indie game developers can get paid. Then there is also a project focusing on providing internet access. You get paid for providing internet to other people. There is also an opportunity for build ad marketplace for virtual worlds. It's called billboard.gg. So that's another interesting marketplace. Then people also will be selling real estate in virtual worlds. We've seen a lot of this happening in Ethereum across CryptoVoxels, Decentraland, and Somnium space, and we are starting to see it in a 2D world on Near called Nearlands. And then people can get paid for creating individual Web3 games. We're seeing a lot of that happening right now. And also providing fan engagement component for both sports and esports is where also we will see people getting paid near as well. For us, like 3 areas of focus is actually creator economy, gaming, and Web2 marketplaces. And I can showcase some of the projects in those markets. I think that will be the most useful to just showcase what's going live, what's live today, what's interesting to follow. So on the creator economy side of things, we have NFT marketplace from Indonesia called Paras. It's the team that went live a couple months ago. They're really laser focused on shipping software and iterating quickly. So they have this web developer mindset to them, which is like very rare actually in the crypto space. And I'm always trying to find more web developers in the developer mindset, by which I mean people focusing on shipping and iterating as opposed to making things perfect and postponing launches instead. So what we see on Paras is that there are a lot of indie games being incubated on Paras, at least like a dozen or so right now. Paras is doing some NFT drops today for some of this early gaming projects, as well as looking into web comics as a next vertical. And so there'll be some web comics going live in the next couple of months. And Paras, generally speaking, is at 100 weekly earners right now. So that's actually one of the more successful NFT marketplaces so far. We also have a marketplace called Minbase that launched very recently. Minbase had a big following in Ethereum before. It was one of the first teams to focus on NFT market in Ethereum space. They rebuilt the marketplace on Near to have much cheaper transaction cost. It took quite a bit of time, took 8 months. They recently went live and right now have 250 plus stores being created. And what's interesting about this NFT marketplace is it does not have whitelisting model, so anybody can join. Any artist can join. If you have friends that you want to bring into NFT space, they can just create their own store without anybody needing to whitelist their work there. And also they focus on creating storefront model, meaning that every artist can have their own decentralized store as opposed to having platform for all of the artists to be in one place. So it's more of a individual artist platform. You can essentially create like Shopify for your own NFTs. And that's what you can do with Minbase. Another interesting marketplace that recently went live is called Pluminite. So Pluminite is focusing on UX and ease of minting NFTs. They also subsidize the cost of minting first couple NFTs. Minting NFTs on Near is very cheap. It's just couple cents. But Pluminite does it for free for the first 3 NFTs. And so they focus for bringing normies into the space. You can mint NFT from mobile within a couple minutes, which we actually did successfully a lot last week in Miami during the Bitcoin conference. And so it was like really cool to be able to onboard people onto NFT space on mobile within minutes. Another interesting project is called Mintgate. So Mintgate is focusing on creating gated content via NFTs. And so it has a lot of demand from creators in our community. That's what we've been seeing. But they're also getting some traction among smaller publishers and also larger brands who want to kind of like experiment with crypto. And that's mintgate.app is where Mintgate is. There is also independent film marketplace focusing on Africa that was started by a repeat co-founder who built a big business in video on demand space in Russia before. His business still controls like 35% of the market in Russia. It went live last year. The one that focusing in Africa right now has 2 million users, and the Web3 component is going live in one particular country soon, in Namibia. So in Namibia, we'll start on independent filmmaker platform that will be like Web3 native a little bit later this year. So that's very interesting project that's kind of understands Web2 space really well and how to tackle particular geographies, but also starting to branch out into like Web3. We also have DAO Records. So DAO Records is focusing on minting audio NFTs, and also just like Mintbase is focusing on creating decentralized storefronts for musicians. So you can think of it more that their vision for DAO Records is that Web3 space will be more like MySpace versus Facebook, in that every creator will be building kind of like their own storefront with their own kind of unique personality, with their own unique community. There will be collectives of musicians, of course, but each individual page, each individual virtual world, each individual like storefront will be tailored to individual needs of the creator. It has very strong community, so it does weekly events on crypto voxels. Check out their Discord. There are like a lot of musicians there. And what's also interesting to see is that we're starting to see some of the creators branching out and kind of like interested in building their own brands, personal brands and communities. Example of that is Varda, and her website is called varda.vision. What's interesting is that I did a recently survey of NFT artists into maybe like 300 people or so. What I learned is that 1 in 5 creators actually has aspiration for building their own project in Web3 space, which is extremely interesting. It kind of tells you that the kinds of artists that enter crypto space are actually quite different from traditional artists, obviously. They're a lot more technically inclined. And so essentially 1 in 5 has aspirations for their own project. And so Varda is building her own NFT marketplace now, focusing on adding yield aspect to the NFTs, which is a really interesting concept. So that's kind of like 7 showcases from the creator economy. Wanted to show some gaming showcases as well. One of the games that is being created right now is called Marble Place. It's going live a little bit later this year, built by a very experienced game maker. And it incorporates 3D modeling and marbles and virtual worlds. And we'll be using this as example in some of the upcoming game jams, because game jams are actually extremely interesting for us, for HumanGuild, because the end product of game jams is actually a lot more complete consumer experiences. Usually it's actual game, versus in hackathons, people usually build something very experimental in nature. And what's important for game jams is to actually inspire game developers with some of the Web3 ideas. And to the extent that we have good examples ready, which we have coupled right now, we will have with each new game jam, we'll have more and more traditional game developers interested in Web3 space, because they need inspiration, they need examples. So Marble Place will be like a very good example for this. We also have 2D virtual world called Near Lands. It supports multiplayer right now. And soon it will support audio chat. So similarly to like Clubhouse or Discord, people will be able to spend time there while talking to each other via audio in real time. We'll be adding also dungeons, some dungeon crawlers, like basic games to Near Lands. They'll be both related to the games, they'll be both related to the projects within HumanGuild. And HumanGuild itself is also hanging out today in Crypto Voxels. We do weekly hangouts, but we're going to start also spending time in Near Lands as soon as Near Lands has some of these features and is more kind of ready for hanging out there as a community. We also have OP Games. So OP Games is an indie gaming marketplace. So they spend a lot of time talking to indie game developers and elaborating on Web3 potential in Web3, be it just NFT monetization or creating more complex play-to-earn models. With indie game developers, what's kind of like apparent right now is that even before there was the case that Apple Store is actually heavily skewed towards bigger game titles, and I think 4% of all of the revenues going towards indies. So it's a very, very small share of the wallet that game developers are getting today. But also in addition to this, companies like Apple with their pro-privacy stance, which is really good for the consumer, but also limiting the existing revenue model for the game developers. So like at least a lot of game developers I talk to, they're struggling with the monetization more and more every year. And Web3 gaming is a really good alternative for them to consider. It's obviously a very different model, but also it allows them to actually monetize their games a lot better. And that's where OP Games is focusing as a platform for all of this indie games. Hash Rush is actually like really interesting title that is more of a hardcore game. It reminds of Warcraft. It's like strategy RTS, kind of going back to this genre of strategy RTS that like I personally grew up on when I was a kid. So that's super exciting. And Hash Rush is launching a little bit later this year and hoping to reach 80,000 gamers this year. It's best gameplay I've personally kind of seen in the blockchain game space, and I talked to pretty much every single blockchain game studio. So very, very excited for their launch. And they also actually go in public on a Stockholm Stock Exchange later this year, which is kind of crazy story on its own, but apparently Stockholm Stock Exchange is very friendly towards younger projects, earlier stage projects, and has very active kind of community, including gaming. We also have trading card games, as I mentioned, being incubated on Paras. This one is from Philippines, a card hunting game where people can purchase booster packs and enter tournaments. This is a team very strong at game mechanics and art, and I think connecting them to more experienced game developers can create even bigger trading card game experience, something similar to like Skyweaver, if people in the audience familiar with this. We also have a project called Metaverse. Metaverse is focusing on creating a series of games, at least 5 games coming this year from Metaverse, but all of these games are actually interconnected. They're part of the same universe. So the Metamon was the first game. It's also a booster pack-like game, but Arcane Tarot is next one, Rare Politics is next one, and there'll be essentially 5 games by the end of this year interconnected with each other. We also have a universe of applications called Pixel apps. So we had Pixel Party, we had Pixel Battle, we have Pixel Pixel Pets that come in live right now. It's a series of games that are becoming progressively more complex. It started as a simple drawing game, now evolving into pet trading and battling game experience. Each token represents one of the total of 70 pets, and there are 4 different rarity types, and each related to certain quality and pet level, and encourage people to actually check it out on either awesomenear.com to find the link, or on Twitter. And we also have Space Game going live soon. It's called Galaxy Online. They focus actually on having different races representing different blockchains. It has pretty complex gameplay, has 1.5 thousand people playing it today. Only 50 people today represent Near, because Near is a very new addition to Galaxy Online. The game itself is actually moving smart contracts to Near at the moment as well, so it's super exciting as well. Space Game. And lastly, wanted to mention briefly some of the Web2 showcases, Web2 marketplaces. So as I mentioned earlier, Near Crowd is actually a marketplace where people can get paid for doing data labeling for image recognition data sets. Today, 650 folks are getting paid every week for performing data labeling tasks. Some people I know quit their jobs to do this full time, and they get paid roughly $275 per week currently. This use case can be generalized. And so we're actively thinking about which one to actually either incubate first or find a team to build first. But it's definitely a use case that can be generalized. It's very narrow today. What's interesting about it is that 5% of people who are doing this today to get paid actually interested in learning more, staying and learning and earning in crypto more. So you can think of this marketplace as not just something that produces something productive. In this case, it's this data set that somebody's interested in and paying for it, but also the fraction of people actually staying in crypto after this. So you can think of this as a onboarding into crypto, where people can incrementally start learning more things, such as what is staking, what is NFTs, what is prediction markets, what are the other ways to participate in digital economy. So that's really interesting. In terms of how we want to generalize this particular idea is we started looking into some other data sets that would benefit from monetization. For example, there's OpenStreetMap. There's a huge community of people interested in geospatial data, but this data set is not quite as good yet as Google Maps, for example. It's an open source equivalent of Google Maps. It's used by Lyft, used by Bill Gates Foundation, used by many different entities. And so you can actually create this marketplace next to it, which monetizes the work. Through this, you can both bootstrap the community of people who are interested in geospatial data, but also improve the actual data set for geospatial data as well. And you can start building new applications on top of it. So you can start showing crypto people in your hometown, for example, as one of the apps that can be built on top of it. You can start incentivizing keeping information for local businesses up to date, which is relevant during COVID reopening. And also it can be, by the way, tied into some of the new Web2 businesses. So for example, somebody we know is building a geo-based social network for expats in Singapore and open to using Near for escrow, bill splitting, payment processing for local events. And we can help him by also bringing this community of people interested in geospatial data, which kind of like lends really well to his marketplace. We also might end up incubating niche marketplaces with existing demand, similarly to Near Crowd. One marketplace that people are suggesting us to incubate is actually translation services. We recently within Near opened up the translation work kind of pipeline, and we got like 250 people interested in getting translations done in the first day. So we kind of like see that there is a demand there, and so that's one of the marketplaces that can be built as a niche to expand on other kinds of like more general purpose marketplaces. We're like actively kind of considering which of those ideas to pursue, given the success of Near Crowd. And lastly, I wanted to mention, so you can join us. We have the website at humanguild.io. We have a Discord link there. So that's where we're building the community of founders and creators. You can also apply via one of the DAOs within Sputnik DAO ecosystem of DAOs for funding of your projects. We gave away roughly 20,000 Near or so monthly in the last 3 months without any advertisement of this resource that exists. And we're going to continue doing this. Soon, we actually want our community to participate in funding decisions. So we actually see DAOs as a product that is used for bootstrapping community engagement, meaning that you can start building community by just having Discord and participate in discussions, helping each other. But you can actually take it further by allowing your community make decisions on your behalf. So in our case, we can provide very high-level framework. We can say, look, we're increasing amount of earners on your platform weekly. When we started, it was 250 earners across all of the applications. Today, it's 1,000. We want to 5x this number by the end of the year. By the way, here is what worked so far historically. And within this framework, please help us get other experiments funded that will help us drive this number further up. So that's kind of like the next stage of it. We want to enable our community to make funding decisions and other kinds of decisions through the DAO, not only just get funded. And so if you're also into audio, we also interviewing a lot of creators and founders. It's Next Creators. You can find it on Apple Podcasts. You can find it on Spotify. You can find it on pretty much like any other audio marketplace of podcasts. That's it from my side. But if you have any questions, I'm gonna stay here for a couple of minutes.
Cheers, Sasha. I don't think any questions have come through, but I mean, it's just so awesome to see the fruits of so many people's labor coming to fruition finally with the explosion of near spinouts, guilds, protocols, projects, and how they all intermesh. If you take the example of an NFT project, from funding to actually minting the storefront, the marketplace, and then additional functionality you layer on top with gating, with governance, and then community underpinning all of it. You can easily see how network effects are going to take off. I also didn't realize as many as 1,000 people were actually earning on a weekly basis Near tokens. So that's super cool to see. Thank you again for coming on and sharing all of that.
Yep, for sure.
So the penultimate panel of the day will be market opportunity of NFT art. If you're a fan of art, either physical or digital, make sure you tune in for that. This is the Open Web Forum at CogX, curated by Fabric Ventures, and I'll see you back here in 25 minutes.